going to be a video on how to disassemble Harley Davidson Molex connector for extending wiring harnesses from your bike. So this is from the right side of my bike, and let me get this back in here. And basically, to start out, is you take a small screwdriver or point, you lift up these two tabs on the outside, and you pull this housing off. This helps guide the wires into the Molex connector. Then you've got a rubber seal in there, and what this does is prevents moisture from accumulating inside of the connector as well. So you pull that out. Now, what I recommend doing is straighten your wires out real good, because once you start pulling this thing out, you're going to want to slide it down the wires, and you're going to be real careful sliding this thing down these wires, because you don't want to rip that rubber deal and mess it up. Okay, this is actually a small file. Put it down there in between the wires, and you can kind of slide it. There really is no easy way to do this. Talked to the guys at the shop, and they said the same thing, that like if you get your handlebars extended, which is what we're doing, this is the bulk of the labor, is the electrical wiring. Now, there's a couple ways you're supposed to be able to do this. You're supposed to be able to come in to the inside and put a sharp object into that hole and pull the wire out. I've had absolutely no success doing that whatsoever. So what I found when I did the throttle by wire control is on the inside, and I really don't know if you're going to be able to see this, is on the outside of the Molex connector, there's some gray tabs. Those tabs are the tabs that hold this plate that the pins come through in place. If you take a flat object, and I'm using a very small file, and you push on those tabs, you can push that plate out, and it makes getting the pins out easier. So we're going to do that. So we're going to come in here, and we're going to push on that. There, it just snapped. You actually hear it pop. And you keep pushing it, and that plate will come out towards the front. You can see it's already starting to come out further at this point. And then you basically just keep working it like that until you can get that whole thing out. Just go side to side and just keep working it down. Okay, so once you get it to a certain point, it'll just fall out. And that's basically your pin guide inside of the housing itself. Now at this point, you can easily get in there, and let me see if we can get some light. Go ahead and refocus on that. And inside of here are some little, they almost look like piano keys, and you can push up and push down on them. And while doing so, you pull the cable, and it comes right out. And that's how you can get all of your pins out of your housing. Now, before you do it, you might do like I did. I made a diagram. So this is for the right side. This is the top. So this is a black wire with a red stripe. So I did black, red. My next one is a white wire with a brown stripe. So I did white, brown. This being the top looking down. The next row being the wires underneath going across from left to right as well. Because once we cut these, because we got to cut these and solder our extensions on, we have to repin this whole connector. So once we get all these out, we'll take this part and we'll snap it back in, and it'll be ready to accept our new extensions. I got all the pins out like we talked about. And then this thing here, it can go in either way. I don't know what it's called, but I know how to work it. And then you just take this and push it back in. It'll snap when it gets into the right spot. There it goes. And then at that point, your pin housings back together, and it's ready to accept your new wire connections after we put the extensions on. Basically, you'll put this in, and you'll hear it snap, and at that point, you know it's secured. Now we've got to take all this off, and it's not easy. Of course, you got to be real careful. You don't want to mess up that rubber. And you might just do one at a time to get them out of there. Okay. Now when you get to this part here, these actually can only come out one way. There's a small notch. It's going to be nearly impossible to see it. And on the pin itself, there's a little metal ear. It's right there.
I'm going to zoom in.
Okay, there's a little metal ear. There's a notch in this hole, and you got to turn this pin to where that metal ear meets that notch, or it won't come out. See, so you can kind of see right now. I can pull it straight out, but if I put it back in and I turn this wire 180 degrees, see, it won't come out. So you got to get that notch lined up, and then your pins or your contacts will slide straight out of this. It's kind of like a retainer housing, I guess. Would be a good word for it. Like I said, I don't know the terminology for it, but I do know how it comes out. There you go. Now you've got that out, and you're ready to clip your wires at different lengths and do your soldering for your extensions. What I did was I did buy a wiring kit, and basically all it is the same colored wires that comes out of the bike. So one of the things you're going to need to do is set them all, lay them all out. Make sure your pins are at the same end. There's actually like a little receptacle on this end that you can plug these in, but that's not a very secure connection. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bunch them up. I really don't care at this point if they're what configuration they're in. I just want the ends to be the same. This is the part that's going to go back into the housing, so they need to be the same length. And then I'm just going to tape them up so that they can't move around. That'll prevent them from moving as I can work with these ends. Then what we're going to have to do is, in order to make them fit in inside of the handlebars, when you start soldering these things, if I put them together like this, I'm going to have a big blob of wires. It's going to be really hard to get through those handlebars. So we're actually going to cut them, and we're going to stagger each one just a little bit. We'll lose a little bit of length of wire, but that's okay, so that we don't get such a big bundle of wires to try to have to feed through the handlebars. Okay, so like I say, we're going to go in here, we're going to cut these ends off. There's a kit they make with this one where you have a barrel like this, and you run your cables through the handlebars, and you plug these into this side, plug these into that side, and extend your wires. I don't like that first because it can come out, for one. Second is that's just a point of failure that you can have down the road. So, you know, after talking to the guys at the shop, they said the best thing to do is just cut these off and solder your wire sets together. And then we'll worry about staggering them here after we cut all these off. Basically, we're just stripping the wires down to get to the copper so we can start soldering. Now what we're doing is before we strip the wire on the other side, we're going to go ahead and get our shrink tubing on. Make sure you use shrink tubing that's super tight on here. You don't want a lot of excess. The more excess you have, the more bulk you're going to have to try to push through that handlebar even after you shrink it. And you want to put it on before you strip the wire, because it's kind of hard to get over the copper sometimes if you don't. Okay, so we soldered all this together, use shrink fit tubing. We somewhat staggered it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put a big piece of shrink fit tubing now over the whole thing. Work that through there. This is the original harness here. We'll put that shrink fit over the original one, overlap it a little bit there. Okay, then we're going to take the tape off the ends here before we heat it. That way, as we work this, it won't bunch up on us. Okay. Make sure that you're overlapped. You'll see a little edge there. I actually make some like hair dryers for this, but I don't have one. Next thing you do is, we wired our handlebars, and in order to rebuild the Molex connectors, I made a diagram. And what you do is that white insert, when we popped it out to get our pins out, we need to leave it kind of in a halfway point where it kind of floats in there, because that's the only way those connectors are going to snap in there. First thing you're going to do is this is the back. Once you get them all pinned, this will end up sliding inside of there to hold them in place. It is notched, so there's only one way it can go on, and then you've got your moisture seal in front of that. So the first thing you got to do is run your pins through here. So my first one, for instance, is a black with red. All right. If you look real close on here, there's a notch on one side of all of these. And once again, this can only go one way. There's a little tab on the pin itself, and that has to go into the notch for it to go through. You just push it through. Now, if I was to take it and turn it 180 degrees, it won't go in. So there's only one way that can go in. My next one's white-brown. So if I'm a white-brown, here it is. Same thing, find a little tab, notch, and put it in. And then we'll continue working our way until we have the whole thing wired. Okay, once you get the pins in, you see they're not all the way sticking out. That's because you got to take a screwdriver or something and push that white piece down. It'll snap, and then your pins will be set. Like that. Now there's a huge difference in the depth of the pins. After you get that done, start working your moisture shield back up. work your, I don't even know what it's called. It just sets the wires in place, I know that. And it'll snap in. There it is. And there's your connector. Totally finished. Now we can retape it.